Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 2nd of July, 2021. Right, everyone, let's jump into it. So, Gitcoin Grants Round 10, matching Round 10, has now ended. I hope you all got your donations in. Wanted to give a big thank you to all of you that donated to the Daily Gwei. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And I hope that you donated to, everyone else as well, all the other projects out there. The next matching round will be in 3 months, so we can do it all again then. And, I'll be here bugging you to go donate to your favorite projects, of course. Gitcoin's actually doing a live stream at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. So today for, I guess, what's the date today? The 2nd of July. And you can go sign up on this link here. So if you manage to watch this video before 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which if you watch in the first couple of hours that it goes live, you should, then, go join this live stream. It should be a good one. So Paul Brody from EY announced today that Nightfall 3 is now out. Now, for those of you who don't know, Nightfall has been this project that's been in the works at EY for quite a while. Basically a privacy project, and there's been multiple releases. Now this is the third release that basically brings a zero-knowledge optimistic rollup layer 2 with privacy. 8,000 gas per transaction released, and it's been released into the public domain. Now, just to give some context here, 8,000 gas per transaction for a private transaction is awesome because to send ETH on the Ethereum network, and not to send it privately, just to send it as normal ETH, is 21,000 gas. So you have Nightfall here, which is offering private transactions for just 8,000 gas transaction at layer 2 as part of their kind of optimistic roll up here. So if you want to read more details about it, you can head to this link. It'll be linked in the YouTube description, of course. But again, this is just speaking to, I guess, what I've been kind of going on about for a while now, that we need a lot more kind of privacy tools to come online, and they are. They're coming online over time. You have obviously Tornado Cash and Aztec Protocol and EY. I mean, there's so many out there now, and I think I've said it on the Refuel before that I think that we need to get to a point where privacy becomes the default, and I don't think we're going to be able to do that at layer 1. I think layer 2 is where privacy is going to become kind of the default, and that's where you expect it. But it's going to still take a little while to do that because, unfortunately, the way Ethereum works is that pretty much everyone can see your total financial history on chain if they know your Ethereum address, right? And anyone in the world can see that. So, and you can accidentally make a mistake sometimes and link addresses together. So, on-chain privacy is pretty terrible. So that and from that perspective, I think that things like institutions and enterprises and corporates and stuff like that are going to not want to adopt mainnet Ethereum because of that kind of privacy concern. So yeah, I mean, I envision a future, maybe in a few years' time, where we do have private default privacy. But I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. The stark reality is that a lot of people just simply either don't really care because they don't see the immediate kind of negative consequences of not having privacy, or they're just not aware of it. Believe it or not, there are still people out there who think that, these blockchains aren't public. They think that you can basically do money laundering or hide money in these kind of systems when you really can't, because if your address touches a centralized exchange ever, you're pretty much screwed there, because these centralized exchanges, even if they don't KYC you and you haven't done KYC, you've left a trail there, whether that be as an email that you've used to sign up, or an IP address or whatever. But whereas for bigger transactions, pretty much all the exchanges require you to KYC, even the offshore ones. So from that perspective, money laundering or doing kind of criminal stuff on a blockchain is just not feasible, and it's fully public. But there are a lot of people who don't know that, and that kind of I guess narrative fleshes itself out and goes into the kind of the wider ecosystem, and people start to believe that they actually have privacy on these blockchains, when in reality they don't. And it's not even just not having privacy, it's having zero privacy and basically exposing all of your on-chain financial activity to the world. So yeah, cool to see this release from Nightfall here. You can go check out this blog post for the full release, and they've also got it open sourced on GitHub, as it is part of the public domain now. So if you're a dev and you want to go check it out and check out their system, you can do that as well. So I missed this the other day. I don't know when it was announced, but it might have just been announced yesterday, and I only saw it like later in the day. But Balancer has joined Polygon's Summer of DeFi with $10 million in joint token incentives. So Balancer is on Polygon now, and you can basically go and yield farm with $10 million worth of token incentives. I think these token incentives are both BAL and Matic. Yep, that's correct. So yeah, if you're on the Polygon network or if you're not on there yet, you definitely just bridge over there and start earning these kind of like rewards here and start doing some more yield farming. I think it's funny, like if I was to look at, I guess, the list of like the top apps and if they're on Polygon, yeah, I think most of the top DeFi apps on Ethereum, or at least a lot of them, are on Polygon. And I do believe that this isn't going to stop here. I've said it many, many times before. It's like there's Polygon, and then there's going to be Arbitrum and Optimism and all these other protocols. They're just going to be on all of these kind of things, and they're going to have like token incentives, but the thing is, it's going to be very hard to see which, I guess, scalability solutions get traction, like actual genuine traction, versus which don't, because everything's going to have liquidity mining, token incentives, whatever you want to call it, which means that there's going to be a lot of liquidity that flows in. But as soon as those token incentives run out, does that liquidity leave, right? Like how much of it leaves? We've seen it happen before plenty of times on Ethereum's layer 1. So I think it's going to still be quite a while. I would say maybe some years before we actually have kind of like a clearer picture of what this ecosystem is going to look like with the layer 2s, whether it's going to be a handful of them, whether we're going to have like this super disjointed system that just like, I guess like prevails because of those token incentives. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people use these systems to make money in some sort of way. And some of the easiest ways to make money is to yield farm, especially if it's a lower risk farm, maybe not providing liquidity, but a lot of the ones like the stablecoin farms and things like that. And just like earning token rewards for basically just having your stablecoins parked somewhere. There's a lot of people doing that, but then the money just flows out as fast as it came because they want to do something else with that. Maybe they want to go to another yield farm, and then it's just like yield farming all the way down. So we're going to have to see how it plays out. I've spoken about it a lot, so I won't rehash what I've said now, but cool to see another, I guess, like star DeFi app from Ethereum launch on Polygon here. Speaking of layer 2s, I actually missed this a couple days ago. Loopring put out their quarterly report for 2021, Q1 2021, Q2 2021, and they put out like what's to expect from Q3, but I think they highlighted here the biggest piece of this. And this actually came as a surprise to me. So they have deployed their Loopring smart wallet contracts on Arbitrum, which will reduce the cost of creating a wallet by a factor of 10 times, which means that Loopring smart wallet is going multi-layer 2. So it is not just married to Loopring's layer 2 system, which is obviously their own ZK rollup that they have built, but they're going and deploying their wallet to other layer 2s as well, which is awesome. I mean, if they're going to Arbitrum, that means they're going to Optimism, and they're going to go to ZK Sync and kind of like all these other ones. I expect them to go everywhere. And I love this. I love that they're not just like staying on their own. Oh, look, they linked one of my Daily Gwei Refuel videos here. That's cool. I love that they're not just going on, I guess, like their own kind of like roll-up solution and just sticking to that and just like siloing themselves. I do think there is a benefit to obviously honing in on your own product and like just focusing on your own kind of like app chain, if you want to call it that. But I think that at the end of the day, this ecosystem, Ethereum, everything that we do on Ethereum is built on collaboration and composability. So you want to be able to preserve as much of that as possible as we go through this great migration to layer 2. And I think that's exactly what's happening with Loopring. And I'm sure, these other app chains like DYDX and Diversify and things like that, I'm sure they're also going to be looking at what to do and how to kind of like tap into these other layer 2 ecosystems, because as I said, like the ecosystem is built on this. The sum is greater. Some of the parts is greater than the whole, greater than the individual. And then I think that's just going to be a benefit to users as well, because we're going to have the bridge systems out there, so you can go from like Loopring's layer 2 to Arbitrum's and still use your smart wallet across them. At least that's how, I believe, how it's going to work. So that's just going to preserve, I guess, like the composability between them, and it's going to make user experience a lot better, which is really, at the end of the day, everything just is for the user experience. And, user experience is like a broad term, but it includes like gas fees at the end of the day. That's like the biggest UX or user experience barrier that I can see right now, is that the gas, for Ethereum at least, is that the gas fees are high. Even at 13 Gwei or whatever they are right now while I'm recording this, that's still too high for most people. So improving the UX, obviously layer 2 is a big part of that, but also preserving what people are used to using on layer 1 and what people expect is also a big part of that. And that's exactly why I've been going on about these infrastructure things that need to be set up on these layer 2s, like Infura, Alchemy, the Graph, Chainlink. They all need to be there before users come, or else the user experience is going to actually be degraded. Because what ends up happening is that, yes, they're saving on transaction fees, or like, I mean, we're all users, right? We would all save on transaction fees, but we're getting a different experience and a worse experience than layer 1. Because if there's no like Infura or Alchemy support, then we would have to point our, I guess, like wallets to our own node or another third-party node, and have to do it kind of like, that kind of, a third-party node has to support those networks as well. And then on top of that, if the Graph wasn't on there, we would have to basically manually check everything. You wouldn't have all those fancy dashboards. And if Chainlink wasn't on there, you wouldn't have, something like Aave. Like Aave is powered by Chainlink's oracles, so you wouldn't be able to use it at all. So that would mean that it doesn't matter if the fees are cheap. Like the system just is fundamentally not going to work out very well. So yeah, I think that I think pretty much all the layer 2s have clued into this by now and are like, okay, well, this is critical infra. We want to make sure the UX is the same as layer 1, just with cheaper fees. Because really that's all, in my mind, layer 2s bring two key things. It vastly improves the user experience by giving them cheaper transactions. That's the first major thing. And secondly, it also improves the design space for developers, where developers can do more with layer 2 than they can do with layer 1, and you can actually start doing things outside of the scope of layer 1. Like Ethereum has some limitations because it is solidity based, and it has the EVM as well, which is obviously been criticized a lot in the past. For those of you who have seen it, it is not perfect, mind you, but it's still good for what it does. But at layer 2, I've spoken about Starkware before, how they're building their own kind of virtual machines and smart contracting language, and DYDX is already on there, so the design space just gets much larger. So those are the two core things I think that layer 2s offer, and those are the things that should be focused on, and they should just basically clone layer 1 in terms of infrastructure support and go from there, instead of just kind of like trying to launch without that, because then, as I said, the user experience is greatly affected there. So the EF, or Ethereum Foundation Ecosystem Support Program, put out their update on their Q1 allocations here. Now, for those who don't know, this is where a lot of the money goes when the Ethereum Foundation kind of like cashes out their ETH. Like I'm sure you've all seen that on chain before. They kind of cash out some ETH, whether that's to basically an exchange to kind of like go to fiat, or they'll pay kind of like different kind of, addresses on chain and things like that. So those kind of things go to, all of these kind of, projects on here, and all these kind of funding initiatives. So you can see this is a long list here of different projects, and some fan favorites in here like Dark Forest, which is a decentralized and persistent RTS or real-time strategy game. Lodestar, it's like ETH2 kind of clients. I think there's Prism in here somewhere. There's a bunch in here. I mean, there's heaps, and there's like a lot of core protocol stuff, a lot of layer 2 things going on, and the total that was awarded was $5.34 million in Q1, which is really, really cool to see. ETH Global is included as well, of course. They run all the hackathons and everything like that I'm sure a lot of you have seen. And I'm just really glad to see the Ethereum Foundation Ecosystem Support Program continuing to continuing to support, I guess, like the Ethereum ecosystem, right? They're doing what's in their name, and doing it well, I think, because you can see like all the apps they're kind of supporting here. I'm actually pretty I think it's pretty awesome that they're kind of like supporting Dark Forest, because like, and I mean, when you think about it, like pretty much most of the things on this list are like layer 1, layer 2, core protocol, client stuff, like not really anything like the app layer, but there just, there's a few in here that were on the app layer, like Dark Forest, there's Cream as well, which Cream isn't the money market. This is for zero knowledge proofs and things like that. So I thought that was the Cream money market. So just going through this list, actually, I think Dark Forest may be the only app layer thing that was funded as part of this round, which is pretty cool to see, actually, because I think Dark Forest isn't just a game. It's doing a lot in the kind of like, I guess, realm of ZK snarks and stuff like that, which is obviously going to be a big part of Ethereum's kind of roadmap and future here. So it's cool to see that. But yeah, I think they are the only app level kind of thing here, or at least one of the only. I can't really see any more on the list here, but still really cool to see this. And I'm great to see these kind of like teams get funded. So Andre put out a blog post today announcing a new project called Fixed Forex, which is a project, you guessed it, for Forex trading. So Forex standing for foreign exchange, of course, and there's a bunch of different currencies supported, like US dollars, euros, ZAR, which I think is Africa, the money they use in Africa. I'm not sure. I think so. The yen, the Chinese yuan, and etc. It doesn't really go into detail about which currencies are supported. I was going to say when AUD, but maybe that's as part of the etc. thing here. But anyway, there's not much information on this. Basically, this project has no token, the order hasn't been completed, and the contract is experimental. So, in other words, it's an Andre project. And the key features are there's zero governance, there's no multi-sig, there's zero configuration, zero fees, zero value extraction, gentle liquidations, dynamic minting caps based on on-chain liquidity, and dynamic loan-to-value ratios based on on-chain protocols. So, this reminds me of Liquidity a bit. For those who don't know, Liquidity is kind of like the same vein where they're trying to like be extremely governance minimized, and the fees that they take are like flat fees and stuff like that. And so that kind of reminded me of Liquidity immediately. But essentially how this is kind of how this works is basically the loan to value ratio is derived from money markets such as Compound, RVV1 and V2 in the Iron Bank. And as these systems auto-update their accepted collateral, so does Fixed Forex dynamically update. Which means, I guess, that Fixed Forex is at the mercy of these kind of money markets for its functioning and for its like health at the end of the day. So you could say that these protocols are in turn governing this part of Fixed Forex. There's minting caps that are put in place, and they're derived from available on-chain liquidity. So the higher the on-chain liquidity, the higher the minting caps. That's pretty cool, right? I'm not sure exactly how they're doing this, or like how he's doing this. I'm not sure if it's able to be gamed or if it's safe or whatever. As I said, not much information in here. Then he goes on to explain gentle liquidations, which is just that liquidations to cover the absolute minimum amount of debt is repaid to bring users' position back to even. No more worrying about the full stack being liquidated during drawdown events. And here's the contract, and the full release will be based on Curve's crypto pools to allow for decentralized Forex market. So if this works, it's a pretty big deal. Like, I mean, there's not really much hype here. There's not much of anything here, as I've said multiple times. But I think that if this actually works and it does what Andre says it's going to do, and it's robust and can be resistant to any kind of attacks, then I think this is a game changer. But this has just gone live, I think, a few hours ago. There's not much support for it yet, obviously, because it just went live. I don't think Curve even has kind of like, I guess this is just built on like Curve's kind of crypto pools. It's not actually integrated as part of their system yet, or things like that. So I'm just going to keep an eye on this and see what happens here. Andre likes to release a lot of projects, and some of them go well, some of them don't. And I don't think there's any denying that he's smart and knows what he's doing. But I think a lot of the time he'll release something like this and then he'll leave it up to the ecosystem to kind of figure out what to do with it, which is fine. I'm just curious to see what we do with it, right? Considering that there's no token, a lot of people aren't going to be interested in this because of that. Like, it became a thing where you would basically ape into or use a new Andre project because there was a token attached to it and you could make money from it. I remember when he launched the Keeper project and he launched a token with it, and it was launched from his deployer address, and there was people that kind of basically got in and made like 100x in like a day. This was during like the I guess like not the top of the bull market, but during like a very heated time, I guess, as part of like DeFi summer and stuff like that. So I don't know, how much attention this is going to get because it has no token, but I think that the smart people will kind of look at this and see if it's actually going to work, and people will use it because, I've said before that I think USD stablecoins kind of like exclude a lot of people because a lot of people don't want to take on that currency risk. They don't want to have to hold USD for multiple reasons. Like I fall into that bucket. So having other stablecoins out there and being able to do things with them is like the dream for me. So I'm hoping that something like this or something else comes along and really kind of, I guess, kind of solves that issue there. So Uniswap V3 liquidity mining contracts have been deployed to the Ethereum mainnet and all testnets, which means developers can start using these contracts today. They say here that V3 liquidity mining is similar to V2. Liquidity providers can stake the liquidity and receive rewards pro rata according to their liquidity contribution. LPs earn rewards as long as the liquidity remains in range. V3 also introduces some other improvements here, such as LPs can now participate in multiple liquidity mining programs simultaneously on a single pair. No more having to choose and switch between Bitcoin incentives. That's really cool, actually. That's very capital efficient. And remember how I said that Uniswap v3 was all about capital efficiency because of their concentrated liquidity and a few other things they put in there as part of features. This is just like kind of falling into the same vein here, which I think is really, really cool. So yeah, if you're a developer interested in kind of looking at these contracts, it'll be linked in the YouTube description, of course, and you can go check them out for yourself and see if it's something that you're interested in. So Brantly from ENS Domains put out some stats here in a tweet where he says, markets may have been down in June, but not ENS. Most new .eth registrations in a month, plus 31,000, nearly 3 times in the amount in May. Blew past 250 milestones for integrations, now at 253, and it remains the dominant on OpenSea for domain trading, 7 times as much as all the others combined. So there's some nice charts here. You can see the monthly registrations. There's the OpenSea kind of rankings here, and then of course the growth here on Do Analytics chart. Now, I think this happened for 2 reasons. I'm not sure if Brantly mentioned this, but the 2 reasons that I see this happening is 1, low gas prices. Obviously, when gas prices are higher, people don't really want to mint lots of .eth kind of like domain names or ENS names because they're NFTs, and that brings and it's expensive. And that brings me to my second point. Because they're NFTs, I think people clued into that and were like, oh, well, ENS domains and NFTs. Oh, I love NFTs. And they bought it, right? I think that I saw that narrative play out. So I think those are the 2 main reasons that our ENS has taken off. But that doesn't take away from the growth. I think it's amazing that ENS is growing like this. I mean, honestly, I think ENS is one of the best tools that we have on Ethereum that isn't celebrated nearly enough. Obviously, there's privacy concerns with it. Like, I'm just going to put that out there, of course. Like, I mean, sassel.eth is my public address. You know, I claim my Gitcoin airdrop with that address, and I regret doing that because the Gitcoin airdrop ended up being worth a lot. And, you know, people can see it on there. But whatever. I mean, it's whatever. But still, I think that having like a public address that you don't mind being public and having your kind of identity attached to it is just like the first step in getting to a point where we can do decentralized identity management and things like that, which I think is really, really cool. And obviously, you know, you can put it in your Twitter name or your Twitter bio, and people can like easily look at that and be like, oh, okay, I can send funds there. I know it's going to this person, like for donations and stuff like that. And there's a lot of other on-chain things you can do as well using that. So yeah, cool to see ENS getting this traction. And as I said, it's due to those 2 main reasons: lower gas fees and people realizing that that ENS names are NFTs, and, you know, kind of like aping in because of that. But, you know, it's funny. And I've also actually, maybe this is a 3rd reason, maybe not. I don't know how prevalent it is, but I've seen people registering ENS names with a message. So they'll basically register like a whole sentence as an ENS name in order to get the attention of someone that they want to talk to. So it's like, hey, you know, such and such, can you contact me at this kind of like wherever, right? And, you know, I've seen like there's a non-negligible amount of kind of like names registered like that. So that's another funny thing. But obviously, they're just kind of like messages, and they're not really meant to be kind of like names that people use regularly. And I think it just speaks to the fact that Ethereum still needs a good decentralized messaging service. I know there's a few things out there. I think, you know, Status is working on a lot of stuff there. Swarm, I believe. I think, if I'm not getting mixed up here, Whisper. Whisper might have been the system there, but I think that's evolved since then. But still, we do need a decentralized messaging service, you know, that kind of like is fully on chain and tied in with the rest of the Ethereum ecosystem. So I'm rooting for the people working on that sort of stuff. All right, so the last thing here is a bit of a conversation about MEV today, because there was an event that happened yesterday. You can see Vitalik posted about it, the mev.wtf online summit, over 8 hours worth of videos. I'll link this in the YouTube description. I'm pretty sure you can kind of like check out the YouTube videos at mev.wtf website. But basically, I went through kind of like all of what's happening with MEV, right? You had like the evolution of MEV, framing the MEV problem, protocol level response to MEV, and application level response to MEV. Now, MEV may seem like a new thing to a lot of you over the last few months if you haven't been paying attention to it in the past. But one person who has been working on this for a long time is Philip Diane. Now, I believe he's been working on this since 2018. And he's published multiple papers on this, multiple kind of research pieces on this. And he's been kind of like, in deep in this kind of like industry, because as he says here, as someone who's been working on mitigations to MEV for years, such as submarine sends, advising Uniswap, hundreds of conversations with every DEX project, MEV mitigations got zero industry attention until flashbots. Now, this is what I wanted to focus on. Flashbots. I've talked about flashbots ad nauseum on the refuel. I'm not going to go and rehash it again. But before flashbots came to the scene, hardly anyone was talking about MEV. It was relegated to the niche areas of the Ethereum ecosystem where only the most hardcore researchers were actually paying attention to it. And everyone else saw it as kind of like this fringe thing that shouldn't really be worried about. Now, since flashbots came onto the scene, everyone's cluing into MEV now, and they know exactly how harmful it can be if not, worked on and kind of like minimized or democratized in such a way as well. So I think that's why you've been seeing a lot more about MEV lately. It's basically flashbots, because before that it was, miners weren't really taking advantage of MEV because they didn't have an easy tool to do so. They didn't have flashbots. Well, now they do, and they're really taking advantage of it. And this problem doesn't go away with staking either. And that's another reason why it's top of mind, is that we're trying to figure out the best way to do transaction ordering where we can basically minimize MEV to the point where it becomes not worth it for the people that are extracting the MEV, or remove it altogether. But I don't think that we're going to get to a point where we can remove it altogether, or at least like eliminate it altogether for quite a while. So if you want like the full breakdown of MEV, what's happening, what are all the mitigations currently going on, you can go to mev.wtf and obviously watch the recap, which, they say it's 4 hours here, but the YouTube video is actually 8 hours long. So I think that there was probably more kind of like other events besides the main agenda here that were kind of like posted on there. I haven't watched it yet. I plan to. I usually, these days, I usually listen to podcasts while I'm playing World of Warcraft. I just have it on my other monitor and I'll just play some World of Warcraft. It's relaxing, right? So, I think I can get through 8 hours worth. MEV to me is something that everyone should really be paying attention to, not only because it's something that is like a pretty big a deal within Ethereum, but it's just so interesting. Like there's so many things happening in the dark forest, as they like to call it, that you just don't get exposed to and you just don't hear about or know about unless you deep dive. And it's really cool to see what the top researchers and kind of like engineers in this space are working on, and what kind of techniques they're coming up with, and just being on the bleeding edge. So if you've got time for it, I definitely recommend going and checking it out there. But I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. So thank you everyone again for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and watch out this weekend for the next Daily Gwei data pump video. I'll be posting that on probably Sunday, and I'll catch you all on next week's refuel. Thanks everyone.